That might be
But
interesting.
when we get going, let's just chop, chop.
I like that.
You cheating at.
Seriously, and just go home. What?
Nothing, Janice. All right, the clock just turned
Recording
7
in
here.
progress.
I'm gonna bring the meeting to order, and if you haven't signed in yet, there's a sign up sheet in the corner as you walk in. And we will rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty,
justice for all. All right. This is the time in the meeting. By the way, I'm standing in for Ivan, who is with us on Zoom, and I'm sure overlooking everything I do. So Ivan, if anything comes up, you just unmute yourself there. Yeah. Ivan's got a new shoulder and is recuperating. So this is the time of the meeting where we have public comments that are not on the agenda. If anybody has anything they'd like to say, this is the time to do it. And if you do have something to say, come up to the podium so that everybody on Zoom can hear you. Would you like to? Okay, come on up and let us know who you are. And
Matthew Baker.
we got on, I think,
Yeah, there's one next.
okay.
The annoying girl been on here.
I want to mute everybody because Ivan's there. Oh.
Jenna?
We just lose Ivan?
No, he's there.
My name is Lynn Averill. I live on Bonnet Street next to the Battenfield Bicycle Shop and across the street from the Brick House. And I'm coming here seeking a remedy for speed, noise, and safety on Bonnet Street. I am here on behalf of residents to petition the town to find solutions to the speed, noise, and safety that is evident on the street. I have 2 pages of signatures from business owners and residents on the petition, all of whom were glad to sign and express concern for the issues I'm presenting. The area of concern is Bonnet Street, which stretches from the bridge past the Barnstead Inn and ends at the roundabout at the Northshire Bookstore. This straight stretch of road is less than a half a mile long. It goes through a densely populated neighborhood with 40 driveways, 37 parking spaces, and 19 businesses. My UPS delivery man calls it the Indianapolis 500 Speedway. The issues of concern are trucks of all sizes, tractors, construction vehicles, motorcycles and cars whiz down Bonnet Street with total disregard to the speed limit and the incredible noise they make, changing gears, using Jake brakes and compression brakes, and the danger that their speed presents for pedestrians. Remedies are suggested on a separate piece of paper, and I won't go through those. We are asking that the situation be given serious consideration with enforcement of speed limits, better signage, and police ticketing. Thank you for addressing our concerns. That's it. Any questions?
Anybody want to? Know that we had the speed sign up, but it was facing north. And, you know, people come from Dorset. We've just had lots of discussion about this.
Right.
I think even at the last meeting, we spoke about this.
I was the one that missed the meeting because of a family situation.
I guess what I'm saying is we're well aware, number one,
Okay.
and two, we've done a study and one of the ideas was to take the sign that we had facing north and have it face south as people are coming from Dorset, for example, going from 35, and they hit that 25-mile-an-hour zone quickly. And so that's one issue. The other issue, I think, was, Scott, did we talk about having a little bit of presence there? I know we talked about presence.
I think it's more West Road that we talked about that.
I mean, I think that may be something that we could do on an immediate basis. The speed limit is 25 there. I don't think 25, if you go 25 miles an hour through that section, personally, I think that's reasonable. But I know just what you're talking about.
If you did, people would honk at you.
I worked on Main Street downtown in that section. I know exactly what you're saying. Especially during the busy times, fall foliage and things like that. We have a lot more congestion and density of traffic. So people, you really get a sense of the speed that people travel both on Main Street and Bonnet Street. So,
I think there was also, Scott, you'd mentioned you could potentially look at getting a more detailed time structure.
Right, that's right, because we only had it one way, so we wanted to get it both ways, so we could look at more data.
And also,
Right.
and look at it like at a more like, is it happening at,
A
I mean,
certain
obviously
time of
certain
day.
times of days.
Yeah,
look at
certain times,
enforcement.
right?
That's true. So I'll get that information and bring it back to the board, and then maybe Lynn can come that time too, if we want to talk about it.
Okay.
That sign not only, says your speed, but it tracks the speed and we get data from that
Right.
sign.
In the paper, though, it said, but the data shows that the average speed in that area was just a little under 16 miles per hour. It cannot be. It cannot be.
My contention at that point, I remember saying, it seems to me that people coming or leaving town aren't going quite as fast as people coming into
That's probably,
town from that 40-mile-an-hour. It goes 40 or 35 to 25 just at the bridge like that.
yeah.
And I don't think anybody recognizes that fact. And
The-
hopefully we can find a way of putting that sign on that side, going south and getting some data
Right.
to support what I agree with you. I know what you're saying.
And the truck noise is unbelievable. The Jake brakes,
Right. And
unbelievable.
yeah, that I don't think I have a remedy for. We have a remedy for.
There are-
There are signs that do say, please don't use
Right.
Jake brakes. I don't
There
know.
would have to be enforcement of some sort.
Right.
You can hear five gears going down. Sounds like an airplane.
And it could very well be that during the summer and fall, spring, summer, fall is when most of those businesses are probably at the peak, and then it might drop off and it may be quieter from this point through April. I'm not entirely sure. But I know that a lot of that is the logging vehicles, most likely that are making that amount of. And
All trucks and all construction trucks make a tremendous amount of noise.
Yeah.
And that's year round, because that's a highway that ends up going into a residential area.
Yeah.
And I think they resent it, actually. And
I don't know if you have ever dealt with that in a successful manner, Scott.
With what, Jake?
But yeah, with just truck noise.
Well, I mean, the select board could decide to put like a sign up saying, no, make a certain area, illegal to use Jake brakes. It doesn't really work that well. It's usually coming down a hill.
Yeah.
Into a town like that.
Yeah, I know there's one on Richville at the railroad tracks. I think is.
That-
obvious
Jake
one.
braking is also on Main Street with the same construction trucks. So, yeah, same issue. on Main Street.
It's a
Hopefully
problem.
the speed limit.
Phil, hold
Yeah,
on,
Phil Smith.
and I'll recognize you in a minute.
I-
So, I think we'll take that into consideration too, and see, and look into precedent, find out if there are ways to address it that make sense. Is that?
Yep. And then the other thing is that there are dangerous spots on Bonnet Street. For instance, Charlie's. Really coming out of Charlie's, you cannot see down to the left, not for anything. And basically to the right, where very quickly you're in a walkway.
The crosswalk? Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's right there.
My understanding of those crosswalks, by the way, surrounding all the rotaries were deliberately designed to slow people down. There's a purpose for them. And
Oh, I'm not objecting to that, but what I thought was,
their location.
right, but the two parking spaces as you come out of Charlie's, one on the right, one on the left, if that were eliminated, you could see down the road.
Right.
You could see the walkway.
We'll take that into consideration too.
Yeah.
And Scott, does that, so signage is something we can do
Sure.
without any. And then we can move the data sign, that data get.
Right, so I'll grab that. We'll get the incoming and outgoing, I think we already had. And then we can talk about, what you want to do at that point. Meantime, I mean, you want to address the Jake break thing, we can talk about that at the same time.
Okay.
And just to let you know, Sandgate, I just found has actual fines for Jake breaks.
Yeah, I think,
It isn't unprecedented that in this community, like in the neighboring communities, that there are some that do have laws pointing out.
right. And are there any additional comments to this while we're on it? Come on up.
Live further out Route 30 than this lady is living. And it's a big issue, the loud, especially the trucks. My suggestion is, what about moving the 25-mile-an-hour sign out to the north side, the north exit of the church? And so therefore, people might have a time to slow down even more before they cross the bridge and get into Bonnet Street.
Is that our stretch?
No, the
That's
stretch
the bridge.
starts at the bridge.
No, yeah, it starts, you're saying put it out by the Catholic Church?
You can put
Across the-
caution signs,
You can put, yeah, I had reduced.
right?
Can we do that there, or is that?
Let me talk to Jeff about, well, what we need to do out there.
Okay. All right. Yes. You want to come up to
Yeah, we have to talk
Well,
at the podium because they can't hear you on
the
the,
podium because of, yeah. And then Phil, I'll get to.
you got two waiting.
And Lee,
And I had no plan to speak, but thinking back to our days when we owned Han Chevrolet, coming out of the roadway between Ed's house and our building and trying to make left-hand turns was nearly impossible at most times because there is no sight line because of the parking on the west side of Bonnet Street. And the same thing, of course, exists with Charlie's. At that time, I tried to get John interested in putting at least a mirror on a pole across the street so that you could at least see something coming from north to south. Obviously, it's a little bit easier turning right going south because you can kind of move out quickly, but otherwise you just get hit broadside if you're going to go out to the left. I don't have a solution other than the mirror, but I would say it is a really dangerous thing when you really haven't controlled the speed as you're talking about
Right.
way back from 25 way prior to the bridge,
yeah.
all the way down through there.
We have Leah Parks and then,
Leah wants to address, I think I don't know, why don't we go with Phil on this topic?
Okay.
And I don't know that Leah wanted to address something different. Phil,
Okay, thank you. Sorry for breaking parliamentary procedure. I apologize. Again, thank you, board, for dealing with the speeding issue on Main Street. I would agree that Bonnet Street, the Jake braking is an issue because I can hear it on Main Street. coming through the valley. Just as much as the jake breaking that's being done by a local construction company that uses Main Street all the time. The jake breaking is a tremendous quality of life issue. So I can see that that's the case on Bonnet as much as it is on Main Street, on North Main Street, and would agree with her on the topic of jake breaking on Bonnet. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on the speed issue?
So signs on North Main Street would be great too.
Okay, thank you. Leah, under public comment.
Yes, my name is Leah Parks. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I just had a question regarding the proposed Verizon cell tower at the Hunter Park location. It's my understanding that the applicant has provided more evidence and testimony and affidavits on the Public Utility Commission website as of November 1st. And I'm curious how the town plans to respond to that new documentation that has been uploaded. My understanding is that we have a 30-day window in which to respond, and that any comments or in motion to intervene would be due by December 6th. So if you could just give a quick update, that would be appreciated.
I'm going to turn it over to Scott, but I believe we just received a package about this. Is that right?
Yeah, about 3 hours ago. So we've received official notification now. The board has a full packet. We have a full packet. Planning Commission has a full packet. And our attorney has a full packet. So Merrill and I were talking about it this morning before we received the packet. And so we did a little research, and they hadn't had our previous letter incorporated in there. And so she's going to take care of that and line us up for our next steps. So we're working on it right now, but we are aware of the time constraint, and we'll meet the demands that are required.
Okay, thank you.
So, is that all right? Leah?
Sorry, we're gonna be submitting the same letter of opposition that.
Yes,
for the
yes.
first
All she has to do is move the attachment off of the other application, attach it to this one.
And we just got this in the mail, even though they said they had sent
Yeah,
it.
they submitted the application to them first. We just received it via US mail today.
So I think,
We have until December 6th, I believe it is.
right. So Leah, I think we'll be reviewing that, and probably at our next meeting, we'll be disseminating as much information as we can
Yeah,
get.
and I'll keep the board updated as this goes along.
Okay. Yes. Can you come up for the podium, please?
My name's Karen Thompson, and I'm the head of school at Red Fox Community School. And I just am following up on Leah's question of, will you be able to have another meeting before the December 6th deadline? So you'll have a chance to review.
We don't need another meeting, do we? We're
We
just,
don't have plans for another meeting, right?
just submit the.
You're just going to submit the same letter,
It's the only difference is the height of the tower,
They
right?
lowered the height 10 feet
right?
and kept everything else the same pretty much, and beefed up their application and their reasoning.
Well, I thank you very much for the efforts that you're putting into looking into alternate locations. It means a lot.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Thank you. I didn't mention that before. So our propagator, Ed Frowley, has visited town. He's met with the town staff, and he's visited locations in town. So he's working on that consulting report for us. We hope to get that within a few days. And that should be here before December 6th, which we can submit also as part of the application.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much.
Over. This is under
On that.
the comments.
Has the PUC been made aware that we've hired a propagator and are working to find a better solution to this issue for everybody?
We just were notified several hours ago, Wilbur. I don't know if we've told them that yet.
Is that a plan to tell them that we're trying to help with this process?
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
Obviously. Anybody else in public, have any public comment at this point? If not, we will move on to item 4 on the agenda, which is approval of the minutes from 10:29. We're going to push that to our next meeting because the minutes were not in our packages, and I don't want to approve something we haven't been able to review. So we're moving on, and we will do that in the next meeting. Item 5, there's a scoping study. We've received a Vermont, a VT Trans grant for a scoping study to identify and improve safety for bicyclists on Main Street and the 7A corridor. We're seeking public input and working with BCRC and Stantec Consulting Services, and I'm going to turn it over to Scott on.
Right. So, I mean, you're aware of this study because we talked about it with the village several months ago. And so we started the process. Mark Anders is from Bennington County Regional Commission. He's going to introduce Eric Alling from Stantec. We did tour the site, walked both of them through it, and I'll let them explain more. Mark?
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Oh, great. Okay. So I'm Mark Anders. I'm the Senior Transportation Planner at the Bennington County Regional Commission. And just a little background, we did a project, a planning study in Manchester Village a few years ago. And part of that was a survey to Manchester Village residents. And the survey showed overwhelming concern for bike safety between the village and the center of Manchester, and the wish to make it safer for cycling. So we worked with the town of Manchester and the village to put in an application for a scoping study to get a small grant to look at options to make it a safer bike connection. So we have hired Stantec, the engineering firm Stantec, to come up with some options. You know, and none of these options that we come up with in the scoping study, we're not committed to doing any of them. They're just, this is kind of very preliminary just to see what the constraints are and what the options are. So I'll introduce Eric Alling from Stantec, who's going to take it from here.
Sure. Thanks, Mark. Can somebody make me, I think at Zoom it's called a presenter, so I can share my screen?
Jonathan.
Oh, you know what? I think I'm good here.
Yep.
Let me know if you can see this.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Let me just get rid of this thing here. Okay. All right. So quick agenda of what I'll cover tonight. We'll talk about the project advisory committee. You've already heard from a few of the members of it, and we'll review the project area. We are going to review the project development process briefly, take a look at some of the existing conditions information we've gathered. And the main reason we're here is to get feedback from the public. So we want to hear from folks in the audience about issues, concerns, ideas that you might have for the project area. And then at the end, we'll wrap it up by discussing next steps. So that pack that I just hinted at is Gordon and Scott from the town, Rich from the village, Mark, who is the municipal project manager for this project. And then at VTrans, it's going to be Derek Hennison, and they'll do some plan reviews along the way. And they'll also review the scoping study at the end. So what does the pack do? They meet, review, and comment on distributed materials, provide overall guidance throughout the scoping process, update their representing entities, and they will help narrow down some of the alternatives and help select preferred alternatives. This is how most projects work in the public world. We start in project definition phase, which is where we are now. We're actually at the very beginning of project definition, and that's where an issue or problem will be identified and studied through the scoping process. And as Mark mentioned, we try to find the constraints and costs and come up with some alternatives that meet the needs of the project area and the users. And if at the end of that you end up with a preferred alternative that is supported by the community, that scoping study can be used to go after funding for detailed engineering and construction. This is our timeline. It's a little bit compressed. Most scoping studies take about a year, but we're trying to get this one through a little more quickly so we can be in time for grant application season in the spring. But we've already begun with gathering data. We're of course here tonight for the first public meeting. After this meeting, we'll take the feedback that we hear, we'll develop a purpose and need and start looking at alternatives. Those alternatives will then be evaluated and we'll bring them back to the public in the spring for another meeting where we'll show at least 2 design alternatives compared to a no-build alternative. So first of all, I have to apologize for the graphics. There was something going on with my image server and my original graphics were gone. So this is Google Maps, but I think it shows pretty well the project area. So we're starting up here at the elementary school and the study area includes School Street, Bonnet Street, and then Main Street all the way down to Union Street. And to make it a little simpler for tonight, I've broken it up into 4 segments. These don't necessarily represent the 4 segments that we'll look at in the scoping study, but just sort of to narrow things down to small areas at a time for discussion. And at the end of each one, I'll ask for comments and questions. So the first project area we're looking at is up by the elementary school and it includes School Street and Route 30 Bonnet Street. There's pretty good pedestrian infrastructure with sidewalks on both sides of the road. No grass strips, but there is curbing to give some separation between pedestrians and motorists. Lots of points of interest along the area, but there are no dedicated bicycle facilities. Speed limit is 25 miles an hour. I got a ADT or traffic volume of 2,500 vehicles a day, but I'm going to have to look more into that. That was off the VTrans site to pull traffic data, but I'm not convinced that's correct. Regardless, it has 49.5 foot right-of-way on both Bonnet and School Streets, and there are some aerial utilities along the easterly side. So that's sort of it for the existing conditions, and I'd like to open it up for any questions or comments about this area. I know we spent the beginning of the meeting talking about this. This segment covers a lot of the area that people are concerned about, but anything related to bicyclist safety or any other questions or comments about this section?
Eric, we're going to do a comment question section on each
yes,
each area. Okay, so
yeah, and I'm happy to. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say I'm happy to go back if somebody thinks about one of the previous segments earlier. We can go back and look at them again. But I thought it would be easy to keep them into four groups, so we're talking about one area at a time because it's kind of the roadway type changes quite a bit throughout the project area.
Okay, so in the interest of time, if you hear somebody else address your question, please don't ask it twice. And Victoria, you have your hand up. Victoria, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I was trying to find my unmute button.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Acting Chair, for allowing me to comment tonight. And I appreciate the presenter's presentation. One of the sticking points, and Mr. Cutler, you brought this up a few months ago in a meeting about the parking in front of the old Factory Point Bank and how that seems to be a really congested area. And when I saw the agenda coming forth about this discussion tonight, I was really concerned about the parking situation along that section of the road and bicyclists and how cars have to back out onto that street. And I also remember, Mr. Cutler, you bringing up the possibility of slowing traffic down by installing a seasonal pocket park. And I think I also raised the point about changing the angle of the parking. So instead of fronting in, people would back in so that the cars would be more, the front of the car would
but I
be
think,
facing.
Victoria, the issue right now is that we're talking about a section that doesn't include those spots. We're talking about just School Street from the school over to Bonnet. And then we're gonna talk about Bonnet Street to Main at the button, and then from there up to Union. So I would love to talk to you about that, or I'm sure we would love to talk about that at another time, but it doesn't.
I saw the map and I thought that it was the whole section. So that's my error, with apologies. I'll put myself
But
on.
Your point is well taken. Thank you. Does anybody else have?
I mean, just going through there every day, I think my greatest concern, certainly on that stretch, especially on School Street, is that it is very narrow. There's actually no sidewalks at all or any type of pedestrian, like children are literally walking in the actual paved road because they can't get out of the road. And there's, some on the hill as you're coming down by the old Brewster home, there's, the embankment is there. It makes it really tight. So, I think there's a lot of suitable area for lots of room for improvement for just general safety, whether it's cyclists or pedestrian in that area.
Mike.
I have a question. He said that the right of way for School Street was 3 rods. Is that just taken on the assumption provided in the statute, or is there actually a dedication of 3 rods?
That was taken from the VTrans right-of-way spatial data hub, where they're currently compiling all the right-of-way information they can.
Okay.
But that would have to be verified.
I don't believe it's 3 rods wide, but someone should research it better.
I imagine the study would yield that knowledge.
And Mike, you're saying that was the right of way for School Street entering into Bonnet?
According to the information provided, it's for all of School Street.
Okay, all right.
Victoria, you have your hand up again, I think, unless. Nope, now it's gone away.
No,
Oh,
I do have it up again. So has any consideration in this proposal or review of data, is there value to bringing up that at one point Memorial was one way, which fed into School Street being two-way street?
No, but I think that's a good point, and Eric would probably, that might show up in the study or their conclusion.
And at one point, it was made, Memorial feeding into school was made one way to slow traffic and address increasing visibility especially at school dismissal time.
Okay, Ivan.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, relative to Mike Norath's question about the width of the right of way, my understanding, because I run into this a lot under my hat as tree warden, unless the state has taken the position that unless the edges of the roadway are clearly defined by deed, that all roads should be assumed to be 3 rods.
That's the presumption I was referring to.
If anybody didn't hear Mike, he said that was here, Mike is coming to the podium.
That was the statutory presumption I was referring to. And so the question is there a deed for that road that provides a different width? Because it would seem that it's not that wide, but what you see on the ground isn't always truthful. And I would agree with John that the current condition of that road is very dangerous. A school bus can't make the turn to get onto School Street if there's a car coming out of School Street.
Thank you. Anyone else here or online? If not, Eric, we move on, I think.
Sure.
All
Yeah.
right.
And I did want to note that I was including Bonnet Street in this segment. So,
okay.
you know, we can, I did get some of what Victoria was bringing up about the parking. That's something we would clearly have to look at. And one of the alternatives could be to rearrange or move some parking. So, and we could even get into some traffic calming on that stretch as well, as though that feeds in well with bike ped projects. So was there anything more specific, Victoria? Or I'll have my email address at the end of the presentation, and you can reach out to myself or Mark as
That
well.
would be great. Thank you. I'll catch your email and follow up.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so, I'm sorry. My mouse is going out of control here. Let me use the cursor. Okay, project area 2 is sort of the rest of Manchester Center along Main Street, from sort of right where we left off at Bonnet Street, down to About Ways. And again, this is not a firm breakdown. It's just to keep it separate for tonight for discussion purposes. Again, we've got good pedestrian infrastructure, still lots of points of interest. They're a little bit more spread out in this segment. Sidewalk on both sides of Main Street with grass strip on the west side and just curb on the east side. Speed limit's 25. The traffic volume is about 11,000 vehicles per day. And for all of Main Street on Route 7A, it's a 66-foot right-of-way width. And then there are aerial utilities along the western side. So same thing, like to open it up for discussion here. Anybody tried to cycle through here? What's it like at the roundabouts, or really anything for this segment?
Eric, just so I think there was a period of time where it was a share the road situation with painted bicycle signs in both directions, I believe, and those have faded to almost non-existent as far as I can tell. And I don't know that we had signage also, but I'm going to start with the board on this before we go to the audience and online. Does anybody on the board want to address Main Street? Anybody have anything to say? Okay. Anyway, yes.
Yes.
Can you come up to the podium, please? Because that's where the microphone is, so everybody can hear.
I'm Amy Werner, and I represent Bike Manchester, Vermont, and also the Western New England Greenway. And all of this is part of the Western New England Greenway. And also it's the new bike trail. And we cycle this all the time. I find it very safe, actually. I mean, I am a cyclist with no fear, obviously. But I have taken loads of people, beginner cyclists, on this route, as long as you're aware of the rules of the road. And I think it's very safe. We used to have sharrows, which are gone. You're talking about, and the painted signs on the road, and that's all disappeared this year. So we need to address that. But I don't think it's that dangerous. But we need to have more signage on the road.
Thank you. Anybody else here? If not, Victoria? Oh, and Sherry, I'll get to you right after Victoria. I didn't. Go ahead. Victoria.
I'm wondering if there's value to bringing up the construction and future opening of, what is it, a 250-seat brewery/bar along that route, and what that will do to traffic and bicyclists.
Yeah, I was made aware of that during the site visit. We'll definitely mention it in the scoping study. I think it's right here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure, Eric, about the number of seats. It could be less, it could be more.
Okay. Yeah, that's
But
good to keep in mind. And we know land use changes in our report, so we'll definitely add a section about that as we get into it and get more information.
Sherry.
Hi, Sherry Siegel. I'm also a member of Bike Manchester, Vermont. And I confess, a more timid cyclist than Amy. And I have to say that while I respect Amy's knowledge of bike routes and her knowledge of the traffic laws, I'm not sure that I feel the same way about the safety of biking this section. Not so much because of the sight lines or anything else, but because I've seen what cars do, particularly around the inn and coming in and out of that circle.
Yeah, and I would say the goal for studies like this is to create facilities that are comfortable for more users than just the bold and confident. There's a small percentage of cyclists that are going to bike anywhere on any road at any time, and these studies are more for sort of the rest of us who maybe don't feel that comfortable in traffic. So that's going to be the goal, is to try to encourage use by more and more vulnerable users than the boldest of the cyclists.
Lisa.
Hi, it's Liza Kraft.
Oh, Liza, I'm sorry, Liza, my new eyes aren't as good as I thought.
That's okay, no problem. But I just wanted to put in my 2 cents. I have biked on Main Street in that section, and I agree more with Sherry on that. The road, because of the traffic, the cars do not wait until another car coming in the opposite direction goes so that they can allow the biker enough room and latitude. They come awfully close to the bikers, and it's unnerving, really.
I just want to add what you just said is true. Just a Sunday or Saturday, a family with very young children were all bicycling together, and it looked fairly daunting, especially the young people were, they sort of wiggle along and they could easily hit something and wiggle into something. It hasn't happened, but I'd rather not see it happen personally. And Phil, oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, Eric, Eric, I think made a good point. I agree that the scope of the study also does need to focus also on, like you said, the more timid cyclists. Our kiddos who are driving, we're looking specifically between our high school and our public school, right? And all the schools in between. So obviously we need to keep those kiddos in mind as they're trying to maneuver through and are probably not as well versed as someone who has years of experience.
Yes.
There's
Heidi.
also, just to highlight, Ways Lane, the left turn from Ways Lane onto Main Street, especially at 7:45
Oh,
in the
it's
morning.
awful.
It
Yeah.
could take 15 minutes to do that, and so people tend to really speed out of there. So there's a couple of tricky spots there that you need to be aware of.
Yeah, good point. I'm gonna come back to you, and I'm gonna go to Phil.
Hi. I'm making this comment not as a cyclist. I don't cycle as much as I used to, but as a representative of North Main Street that is not part of this project. I see a significant increase in cycling on North Main Street, particularly in the early mornings during the week, and particularly on the weekends. Sunday, it's very big. That's becoming much more noticeable to see cyclists on North Main Street. So as consideration, I know that the town plan has a bike lane in one of the town plans. I think the most recent one, but it could be one of the older ones, that shows a bike lane on North Main Street. And it might also be helpful to the visual impact in that 25-mile-an-hour area. Just a consideration either for this project or for the future.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I just wanted
Did you have to, I'm sorry, you have to go to the microphone because they can't hear you.
I actually need to make a correction with what I said. I was basically talking about School Street, I was talking about Bonnet Street, and to the circle of 11 and 30, that has been, in my opinion, a lot of that has been corrected. I agree with everything north of there does need to be fixed, okay? That is extremely dangerous. But I didn't realize he was going past that second
Okay.
circle.
Okay.
So I want to make a correction. That is extremely dangerous, yes.
I think we're all, to a degree now, everybody is in agreement. Okay, Eric.
South Main Street, I'm sorry.
here.
Eric.
Okay. We ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay. So the next one is Manchester Village. As you can see where I've highlighted here, we have, and I stopped just short of the southernmost area of the project area, and that'll be our last segment. There's still shops and points of interest, but they're quite a bit further apart here. There's a lot more open spaces. There's some forested areas. Sidewalks on the east side with grass strips, but nothing on the west side for this segment. Speed limit is 30, similar traffic to the previous section of about 11,500 vehicles a day. As I mentioned, it's 66-foot right of way. And then there are some aerial utilities, which you can see in this picture, but they get undergrounded right about at the Inn at Manchester. And so I'll open it up for comments and questions about this section.
Anybody have any additional comments or about this section? Or yes.
I'm Robin Werner, also Bike Manchester, Vermont. I guess I'd just like to point out that the number of bikes on the road is increasing. Bikes are becoming more used for transportation, people to get to work. It's generally encouraged by everybody as a good way to get around. And I guess the idea of the scoping study is to figure out how to make that safe. The bikes are here, we have to deal with them.
Yes. Thank you, Robin. Anybody else on this section? I think this section might, I'm not entirely sure, but this was also a share the road section with the painted roadway. Or maybe that started at Mulligan's. I can't remember.
No.
Was it? It's not this section. So it was, so not in the village. But I think everybody shares a concern for bicycles from all the way along that stretch into Manchester. And again, where I saw the family was in the village. And so Eric, I know everybody seems to be done with their comments for now.
Okay, that brings us to the final section, which is the southern portion of our project area, also in the village. Picks up from right about where we left off and carries on down to Union Street. Back to lots of points of interest, getting a little more densely packed in, good sidewalk on both sides. They both have grass strips, but again, there's no dedicated bicycle facilities. Basically the same traffic volume, 11,500 vehicles a day, speed limits back down to 25. And all the utilities in this area are undergrounded, which is nice to not have to consider those with our design suggestions. So this is it, last section, and I can go back to another one if somebody thought of something else, but I'd like to open it up for discussion here.
Mr. Drunzik.
I just have a general question when you talk about and showing these street views, and you talk about the width of the right of way being 3 rods. Is the center line generally assumed to be the center of the right of way? or is that? yet
Yeah,
to be
generally the center
determined?
line of the road is the center line of the right of way unless that road's been modified since the right of way was put forth. But in most cases, yes, it would be 33 feet on either side because we're at 4-rod right of way for Main Street. So it'd be 33 feet either side of the center line of the roadway.
All right. So that kind of determines, you go to the width of the road and then how much room you have on your shoulders or off the road to potentially work with.
Correct.
On each side, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Heidi.
There's just another tricky intersection, West Road, where it intersects Main Street, kind of right
Yep.
where Burton, that's like, can get really congested and awkward, same time of day, 7:45-ish.
And are you
Okay,
turning
that's
left
good to
or are
know.
you going straight? And which blinker do
Yeah.
you use?
Yes.
If you use
Just a
one.
hand. I just hand up.
Yes, got it.
A question, unless I just heard it wrong. You're stopping the study at Union Street going south?
Correct.
Why would we not go to River Road when one of the sort of scenic routes of bicycles is down River Road? And the roadway from Union to River is, unless the curb's gotten bigger, is a real 2 or 3 inch curb. And same thing, people coming from the south are supposed to be at 25 or so by the time they hit that section, but that's not the case. I would strongly suggest that if it can be changed, that it go at least to River.
I can jump in. This is Mark Anders at BCRC, and it's a really good point. And the answer is because of budget. We just didn't have enough money in the budget to go all the way down there. But, you know, there's no reason we couldn't do a future scoping study to look at that.
To me, that cuts the village kind of in half.
Yeah,
So you don't
no, you're-
have to, I mean, again,
Yeah,
No.
it's a good point, and the answer is we just didn't have enough money to do it. But I think we should look at it in the future.
Yes.
So I also represent the Western New England Greenway, which is a bike route from New York City to Montreal. And Manchester is a segment of it. And the original Greenway comes up from Bennington, and it goes up River Road, Route 7A to the West Road. So you're leaving out that segment. And there will be signage shortly for that. There's an alternative, which is when you get to the River Road, you will take Richville Road and come into town because we had beautiful marking for bicyclists, and we have the new rail trail. But just so you do know, that is part of the Western New England Greenway that the town originally approved. So it should go further.
In the interest of time, Victoria, do you have something new to say, or go ahead?
Totally
But-
new. Was it Mr. Anders? So, Vice Chair, my question is for Mr. Anders. You spoke about the cost to do the section of Union Street to River Road. How much money are we talking about?
We got a grant from V-Trans, and we put out an RFQ, and the only company that responded was Stantec, and it's expensive to look at these corridors, and we just didn't have enough money in the grant to do it. But I think that there's no reason we couldn't apply for another grant to extend it south.
I guess I'm just saying that the way I think of things, like if you're doing the study, to Mrs. Werner's point, maybe there's a way that, and And Amy, I apologize because I'm about to say something that's totally without foundation. But maybe someone in the community could find the money to make that up. And then the whole study could be completed all at once.
All right, well, again, Eric, why don't we carry on? Thank you, Victoria.
So that's really it for tonight. The next steps are going to be to take these ideas we've heard and start to look at a purpose and need, which will define the users and the types of facilities we're going to be looking at. And then we will take that and start looking at some alternatives. The committee will meet throughout the winter and we'll be back here in the spring to present what we've come up with for alternatives. So with that, I thank you for having me, and I really appreciate the comments. And we will take those and start pushing forward on this. And people want to jot down my email address and ask me questions after the fact, that's fine. And I can provide this presentation to the select board if they'd like as well.
And if you can share that with the town, if you can get Scott's email. You have it? Okay, so if anybody's interested, they can get in touch with the town in order to get those addresses if they don't see them here. And moving along, thanks you guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Art.
Item
everyone.
6 on the agenda, the select board is going to possibly appoint 2 new members to the Energy Committee who are here tonight. I believe Jonathan Grant, or one is here, and Letitia Scordino, and also accept the resignation of Jen Lawler. Would you like to?
I'm Tim Lawler. I'm Vice Chair of the Energy Committee. Carl couldn't be here. He's the chair, and he asked me to stop by, which I probably would have anyway. Anyway, we were hoping to recommend with enthusiasm both Jonathan Grant and Letitia Scordino.
Okay.
I don't know if you have any questions or if you need something official.
No.
No.
I don't think we do.
I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Jonathan Grant and Letitia Scordino to the Energy Committee and accept the resignation of Jen Lawler.
Second.
We have a motion and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. And that's
Ivan.
Ivan, did we have a hand up from Ivan? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for all your work.
Next, the select board is going to possibly appoint a planning commission member for an open position. We did receive 4 applications and we interviewed 2 candidates that were new to the process for the open position. And I'm going to turn this over to Heidi. Heidi and I were the interviewers.
We're lucky enough to have the appointee in the audience today. So Carolyn Alderman has been interested in town planning and we think has a lot of valuable experience. And I welcome you to pop up and introduce yourself if you'd like.
Thank you so much. So my name is Carolyn Alderman. I am director of a Vermont not-for-profit located here in town. Our offices are here, and I've been living in Southern Vermont for 20 years, Manchester for about 10, and I've always been interested in town governance, and now I have the opportunity to do so. My daughter's a teenager at PBA, will be leaving next year, and I'm just really excited to get started, to get to work and to support the chair and all of his endeavors. Thank you so much. I'm really excited.
Thank you.
No,
Appreciate the opportunity.
thank you very much.
For volunteering. Thank you.
Any further comment or if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve Carolyn Alderman as the new member of the Planning Commission. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? And Ivan, I don't know if you can. Ivan, thumbs up from Ivan. And that's 5-0. Congratulations, and I look forward to seeing you on the planning commission. Okay, we have item 8, ARPA funds obligations update from Scott, I believe.
So you had in your packet, I believe, received the current ARPA commitments and the expenditures. And you'll see that the lower half of that section shows 3 different projects. One's the Riverwalk Bridge, which we've committed 50,000 towards. Police dispatch console, 164,000 change. And both of those are fine as far as the obligation commitment goes. But the emergency river flood mitigation commitment is not going to make it in time. So we've got till the end of next month, December 31st, to obligate these funds. So I've reached out to Katie Buckley from Vermont League of Cities and Towns, and she's guided me through a process which will come back to you at the next regular meeting of ways to transfer these unobligated ARPA funds to the general fund. And so I will bring that to you at the next select board meeting. It'll be an agenda item. You'll have to approve a resolution, and probably what we'll do is assign a certain section of, let's say, payroll out of the general ledger, and we'll use that money to go towards that. And then that money that we would have used can be put somewhere else until we need it for this project. So you'll see this again next meeting, and we just have to do it before December 31st.
Yeah, I hope that works out, because I think that's a super important.
Or that if we do make that designation, do we need any public hearing on that?
No, we don't. We're going to do it at a regularly warned public meeting, the regular scheduled select board meeting.
Okay. So on with the remaining funds?
The remaining funds are committed, are obligated. Riverwalk, whenever they need that money, we've already obligated towards them, so that's contract.
Okay.
Police dispatch is various vendors, and we're spending that money as we go along.
Okay.
There's an additional 51 though, right?
That's what we're putting into the general. Yeah, we're moving, it's earmarked,
got
but
it.
we
Okay.
haven't, we're gonna put it there.
Well, that and the emergency river flood
Yep.
mitigation. Yeah, the 51's kind of like what's left over. I think the dispatch console, it might be a little bit more expensive too, but
Okay.
Great, thanks.
Ivan, did you have anything you wanted to add on that topic, or are you all set? He's gone dark. All
I'm
right,
fine. Thank you. Thank you. I understand.
okay. Moving right along to number 9, the possible ban of e-bikes and battery-powered bikes on or at the skate park or on the skate park at the rec park. E-bikes and battery-powered bikes have been they've been there at the skate park, and they pose a safety hazard. Scott, where are we on the?
you heard at the last select board meeting, this was brought up. And so Brian Van Horn and myself got together and looked to see if it was a problem, and it has been a problem. Apparently, we just at least hadn't reached my ears yet until last select board meeting. So we looked at, what we could do to restrict it. And even though we don't have it built into the town park ordinance, we do have the authority under my authority to set restrictions that would be a safety hazard. So Brian and I are going to put together some sort of ban for those bikes. They're heavy, and you got little kids that are on that skate park learning how to skateboard and bike. They use the little trikes on there, and those things are dangerous, and some of them can get to quick speeds.
Right.
Yes, so
The skate parks aren't really designed to hold that kind of weight either, are they? Is that?
probably not, but that doesn't stop people anyway. So the key thing is enforcement. Once we get some signage up and some restrictions. Right now, our current sign for the use of the skate park, it doesn't restrict them.
I mean, I feel like the people that use the skate park that are following the rules will probably be our best allies in terms of enforcing them, so.
Yes, yeah.
We just have to.
They might be here.
You just have to put up the signs.
Would you like to address this topic? Come on up.
Better this week.
Yeah.
I got that herniated disc. I guess thank you for bringing this up again. The rules of the skate park, there is a big blue sign that does say no motorized vehicles. So there is some signage. I just don't know how clear or obvious it is that it, that these e-bikes or these battery powered things do have motors. It does say no motorized vehicles at the skate park. So I think just, additional signage, modifying the sign maybe just to say, hey, e-bikes, battery powered vehicles of whatever type, are prohibited. And yeah, I'm at the skate park with my son quite often when the weather is nicer, and I'll tell them to sort of skedaddle. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. And just the last time they pushed a couple too many buttons, which kind of brought me here. So again, thank you for, kind of bringing this topic back up.
I'm glad you brought it to us, and there's other e-bike issues around town and not just the skate park. So I'm,
Just put it on the record. I'm not opposed to e-bikes as how the Vermont state law defines an e-bike. I went over the details of what an e-bike is. They want to ride down Main Street where, bikes are legally allowed to ride. Fine, awesome. Totally support bicycles. But these more dirt bike style battery powered devices don't belong on a skate park. Obvious safety reasons. And yeah, the park's not designed for vehicles of their size. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. So we'll await
Yes, we'll be doing that shortly.
as quickly as.
Yeah, and then winter sets in, so it'll give us a little
Twitter time where we can deal with it, because
Yeah.
there's probably not going to be as much use. Although I went by this weekend, it was packed. Yes, Mr. Junzik.
I happen to, walking the, trail around with my wife last weekend and walked over there and did notice that. And, there was quite a few motorized scooters and small bikers on it. And, they tended to move a lot faster, and it is a bad mix with the skateboarders. My only concern is, okay, you're gonna ban this group, and then where do they move to? And might it be a consideration to set aside some hours on some days where they can be allowed to use it? That's all. I mean, there was at least, I count 7 or 8 young people on scooters, particularly youngsters, and 2 or 3 bikers on it. So again, you chase them off, and I clearly understand why, but then, they're going to want to go somewhere else and do their thing, and whether or not we could possibly have some shared use. I'm just putting that out there for consideration. Okay?
I mean, I think from what I understand, the risk is that these skate parks aren't designed to hold the weight of those. These are 250-pound bikes.
I just see those out there.
I mean,
But they're out there.
they're there.
Quite a bit. I'm just saying, yeah, so.
Like, East bikers, I don't see a problem with, arguing has them, they don't go that fast, they
Yeah.
don't weigh more.
These like go 60 miles an hour and weigh 250 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ivan, did you want to say something? I noticed you popped up. in
No, I
full
just
view.
popped back on the screen. I'm interested in the conversation. I agree that the Ciron style bicycles are way over designed for the size and the scope of that park, especially when commingled with younger kids that are just learning how to do it. Probably some of the smaller scooters would be fine but the problem is that the park is not monitored. And probably the cleanest and easiest way to do it is just to ban motorized vehicles in their entirety. Unless, as Bill said, there was some way to set aside a time where they could use it. It could get messy. I don't know. Luckily, we've got the whole winter to think about it.
I agree. You want to do a dirt park out at your place somewhere?
He's still on mute for a reason.
Is there a monetary gain somehow? I'm thinking this through. Anyway, okay. We'll move along and thanks everybody for your comments on that. I don't think we don't need any action. And I look forward to updating. We'll look forward to updating everyone as soon as we can on what's happened there. And of course, enforcement's our big issue. So we're at
Town plan 10.
number 10, town plan renewal discussion.
So BCRC and its executive director, Bill Colvin, came to the planning commission last week and explained the need or the dire need for us to get our town plan renewed by May. And there's certain consequences that would affect us if we didn't. So we asked him for a proposal, which he gave us, and I think you have a copy of that in there, which would expedite this process. And I also included the preparation and adoption procedures for the board to look at too. So that also lists responsibilities of the planning commission in this procedures and responsibilities of the select board during this adoption procedures. So we're gonna hopefully, if you're willing, contract with BCRC for a contract not to exceed $8,750 for them to rewrite this in an expedited manner with the required state elements, which you see that in an email from Bill to myself, which includes things that weren't required when we last had an update done. And then once we meet that deadline, there is intent or may or may not be intent to dig deeper into the town plan with various sections of it. So, but this is just to get us across the finish line before it expires, before our town plan expires, and we lose certain abilities for grant funding and adopting bylaws and things like that.
Yeah. Yes. We should have a wireless mic that we can move around.
Oh, I don't want it. Again, Tim Lawler from the Energy Committee. I think it's every 8 years, the plans have to be renewed. And the energy plan, for some reason, Manchester's energy plan is separate from the town plan as a separate document. And it's skewed. I think the last version that was adopted was 2020. So we're fully out of cycle. My hope would be that we could merge the energy plan into the town plan and have it be a single document so that any referencing could be easily understood. I don't know how to incorporate that.
Yeah, that would be the deeper dive part of it afterwards. But Tim, the LEAP energy portion of it will be included in this sped up process.
The document would be merged, or the content as it was adopted in 2020? We've been working for 2 or 3 months revising and brainstorming about the plans.
The Select Board and Planning Commission have discussed, without really talking about it directly, where they want to go with this town plan after this. So this is just to get us to meet the mandatory requirements of the state. And then we will look at certain other sections of the town plan and redo those in the future.
Okay.
Update it as much as we want to.
And whenever,
Well,
you don't have to see for 8 years. We can do it
Well, it's
next year.
costly, and not just monetary. We have to have a planning commission meeting, a select board meeting, a dual meeting, all of them warned and publicly.
We have those all the time, so
Okay.
it wouldn't be big.
It's not an issue.
Yeah.
And Tuesday, or is it the 18th, the next planning?
Ask that gentleman there, I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Victoria.
Vice Chair, I'm wondering why Manchester seems to be waiting until the last minute to update the town plan.
Wilbur, do you want to address that? I'm not sure that would be characterized that way, but we certainly, we've had some reorganization.
Let's reword it, but I'm sorry, sitting in my living room, that's the quickest
wording I could come up with.
And I'm gonna let Wilbur address that.
The planning commission has been addressing this issue since early summer, maybe late spring. We spent a good deal of time on it. We've had individuals submit information and documents. We've had groups of 2 work together to submit their opinions, and we've discussed at length how to take the first step, what portions of it are basically going to probably be unchanged, what portions of it we don't like, we think can improve, more of an action plan. I think that might describe what we've done to date. I wouldn't say that we are waiting till the last minute. We have until May. We're very aware of the deadline. And I personally think we can meet it. I doubt that we're going to totally redo the town plan. I think we're going to polish it, maybe is the best terminology. I want to respond to Scott's comments. Before having a vote tonight on accepting the BCRC proposal, I kind of think that the planning commission members, especially the new one, don't totally understand what that encompasses versus the rest of the project. And maybe we could wait until the 18th when we discuss that more in depth to find out what they're doing. My understanding is they're going to add the necessary changes to the state mandates. I don't think there's anything beyond that. Is there, Scott, in this proposal?
No, they would make the town compliant with the statutory requirements for the municipal plans and things that have changed since 2018. They include the Act 171 Forest Block and Habitat Connector requirements, the Home Act and Act 181 housing requirements, and Act 174 requirements related to enhanced energy plans. And then they would update the basic data that's included in there, like economic, demographic, and the LEAP energy data.
I don't have any problem with any of that. I hope that the other planning commission members understood that. I'm not certain that they did.
I'm not sure I know all the names to the new members of planning commission, to be honest. But I'm sure they will. And if I can add one more thing, Wilbur, because it happened before you came or right around when you came on. So we normally, to rewrite the town plan, we get a municipal planning grant, an MPG grant. And those come out in the fall with a deadline of late November, early December. Last year, we missed the deadline. It fell through the cracks and we missed that deadline. So we said, all right, well, we've got a package, an application all ready to go. We will just resubmit it next fall. Well, when the deadlines came out this year, they extended them because they were behind with something up north. So now we weren't going to get that MPG grant because the deadline's aren't till the end of January. So it pushed our time limit back. So, I mean, it fell through the cracks last year. And we didn't really want to spend any extra money if we didn't have to, but I'm afraid we have to now.
But if we got this done to meet these requirements, then we would be in that cycle to go forward.
We could use an MPG.
The other issues that the planning commission wants to address.
That's right.
Okay, and I think Ivan wanted to talk, but then I imagine Scott just addressed what Ivan was going to say.
Yeah, that's correct. I was going to mention everything that Scott said. I just wanted to back up Wilbur in what he said. When Wilbur came on as chair, we talked briefly about this. And at that point, prior to him coming on board, there had been discussion about rewriting the whole town plan. And we felt that with the amount of turnover we were seeing on the planning commission and in the department, that it would be best not to tackle a project of that magnitude at this point in time. And to just simply, since the town plan has been serving us well, to readopt and then move forward. And in the interim, as Scott mentioned, these requirements came up as mandated by the state. So we do have to react to that. And the expertise for doing that lies within the BCRC. So I think this is a good remedial step for the interim. And then we can address the bigger picture of what we want to put into the town plan later. And I'll refer back to a discussion that we were having earlier about the propagator that came in for cell towers. They will also help us a little bit in deciding how to codify what we feel might be the appropriate places for cell towers. And the proper landing for that may be in the town plan, not in the zoning ordinance, or at least the meat of the conversation. So there's a lot that we need to discuss before we get into a major rewrite of the town plan, if one is needed at all.
Okay, thank you.
I want to add to that I think that covered it very accurately, and I think that the proposal here to accept BCRC's $8,700 contract, I think it is, to address the new issues that are mandated by changes at the state are definitely something that has to be done.
Yeah. I would be in total agreement, and I'll entertain a motion, I think, to make that so.
Well, sheets maybe.
It would be to adopt the proposed agreement.
Between BCRC
Yeah.
and the town of
Town of
Manchester.
Manchester.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Is that clear, the motion? Yeah. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And a thumbs up from Ivan, 5-0. Okay, terrific. Thank you. And I agree, we have to do that. All right, moving along to, I can't believe it, Scott, we're at town manager updates.
Well, we got more in there too to add, so here we go.
Okay.
I enclosed in your packet the local option tax quarterly results. They're showing steady and strong results, probably more identical to 2 years ago than last year, but we're still on track to meet the required amount we built into the FY 25 budget. So that's good news. Splash pad funding, we did finally hear back from the Vermont Land, Water and Conservation Fund, and we just signed the grant agreement in the last 2 days, because that was the big holdup over the course of this project. So the next steps are to get an RFP out, which we've got it already drafted, and then it'll go out to specific vendors and anybody else who wants to bid on the project. And I just showed you on that in your packet, there's a little bit of display of the funding. Let's see if I can get, oh, it's a little, and I apologize for the way I put that together, but it shows the, in a little pink sticky note copied, that the FY 2020 town meeting approved 35,000, well, more than 35,000, but that's what's remaining from that towards splash pad. And then in FY 2022, another 20,000 was committed towards that. Then we have built in some in-kind services, about 7,500. So that gives us about 62.5. It's 100% match reimbursement type of grant. So we do have a little bit of wiggle room also, as the recreation capital reserve is 65 or so. And so we don't know what the bids are going to come in at. We scaled it back slightly, the number of features they call it, but inflation has probably driven the cost up a little bit too. So we'll see what we get back from results of the RFP.
It's $100,000 match, up to 100?
Up to,
Yeah.
yeah.
I just for clarification, because I don't remember the specific on this part, is it within the confines of the existing pool?
No.
It's with outside?
Yeah,
of it, so
we're pulling it outside. And the reason for that is that we want it available off hours.
Yep.
So when we close up the pool at night at 5 or whatever it is, people can still use the splash pad, or in May when it's, 85 out and the pool's not open yet. Gives us some water fun.
Yes. Great, thank you.
Pickleball and tennis court update, we had an RFP ready to go, but I couldn't release it because we just don't have an answer to where the funds are gonna come from. And so what we're doing is we're applying for grants on that during the course of this winter through a VORC grant, which is a recreational grant, or again, this land water conservation fund. And then we're also fundraising during the winter, and we've got to put together an accurate budget. So until we have all those items, it just doesn't make sense to release the RFP at this particular time. So we're still working on this. It does need to be done. But I think you'll see some of this in the FY26 budget when we talk about it next month.
Was there a fundraising component to that from the pickleball?
Yes, it's already started, and they've done a great job already with fundraising and commitments. It's just, we can't put the RFP out based on future donations.
Right.
Just if we don't have the money, I hate to put it out and then have people bid on it. They go through the process of bidding and then you don't award it at all.
Did the removal of all of those arborvitae planted around the tennis courts help to stem the deterioration of the courts? Or are they holding up?
Court's a shot, yeah. If you walk carefully and go towards the nets and go towards where they were repaired before and just bounce a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't bounce on a tennis.
Bounce on.
Tennis balls should bounce. You should not bounce. Some good news. We received today, I don't know if Tim heard this yet. I think he did, right? We received an award for that MERP application that we submitted for this building and the emergency services building for heat pumps, weatherization, stripping, window inserts, ceiling insulation. This thing up here, whatever that is, $449,000.
Thank you.
Great.
So great.
That's great.
Thank you.
And so we signed our half of the grant agreement. When the commissioner signs their half, we can actually get moving on getting some of this stuff done once we go through the proper acquirement procedures. And we already talked about the cell tower thing, so that's all I have tonight.
Terrific. Thank you. Wilbur.
One last thing on the town plan.
Oh, no, we've already done that. You got to sit.
I discussed with Scott about advertising in the local papers beyond the electronic media to go into print to try to get people to come give input on their thoughts about the town plan. So I was hoping we could get a go on that. It's not a lot of money, but I think it's worthwhile putting in the journal, maybe for a week or two, and probably do more than one event too. But in advance of each event, do some advertising.
Yeah, I mean, we'll work with BCRC on this, and we'll spend some extra money if we have to for doing that. We'll get that out there.
Okay.
But just press releases in general shouldn't be an issue though, right? I mean, that's.
No, those he's talking about putting, an ad out in the journal or something, just encouraging people to participate in this process.
Yeah, and I encourage people to attend the planning commission meetings. Also, it's a good way to find out what's happening and they can leave their comments and input. This brings us to item 12, any other business from select board members?
2 seconds. About half of the housing task force will be attending the Vermont State Housing Conference, statewide housing conference in Burlington on Thursday.
Great.
Which is hosted by VHFA. So should be a lot of valuable information coming back from that.
Terrific. Ivan, I see you reappeared on the screen. Did you have anything? No, he's muted too on top of it.
Well, I am muted, but no, I reappeared because I know an important motion is coming up.
Motion to adjourn.
Wait, I didn't even get a chance to ask if everybody was done. Well, Jan.
Is there a need?
We have a motion. You have a second?
Second.
Okay, that's a non-debatable motion. We are adjourned. Our next meeting, we always do this before we now.